arguing, controlling, gaslighting sometimes. When we see this kind of behaviour going on in a relationship, OCD is sometimes at the core of it. And I think us therapists are getting better at spotting when it's OCD compulsions rather than a relationship problem. We're recognising when one partner is acting on their intrusive thoughts, ROCD or retroactive jealousy, and they're asking or demanding assurance and answers from the other partner. But there's another pattern we keep seeing, and one that gets far less attention, much less than OCD, even though it's probably just as common and it's just as difficult and destructive. It's called OCPD, Obsessive Compulsive Personality Disorder. And if you're thinking, now I've heard about that, that's when you procrastinate all day and you can't get anything done and you're really tight with money, that's not me, that's not my partner, then just hear me out. Because OCPD is widely misunderstood, and it often shows up in the therapy room dressed as something else. And that something else might be your retroactive jealousy, or your relationship OCD, obsessive doubts about whether your partner is truly right for you. I had a client a while back, I called him Kelvin in a previous video, and he came to see me, he said, for the benefit of his wife. He really did not think there was anything up with him. His wife had a sexual past, and she didn't seem appropriately troubled by it. And that was the problem as far as Kelvin was concerned. And that had me thinking maybe OCPD. And we'll come back to Kelvin. But first, what is OCPD then? OCD versus OCPD. What is the key difference? With OCD, the thoughts feel unwanted, intrusive. Therapists call this ego dystonic, meaning the thoughts feel counter to who you are, or what you believe and what you value. I hate the thought that my partner is this or that, or that I'm this or that. OCPD is almost the opposite. The preoccupations feel consistent with who the person is, their standards, their values, their identity. It's ego syntonic, meaning it feels like me. I'm not disturbed by what I'm thinking, it feels right. The disturbance is whether it's true or whether other people won't see it. I don't like the thought that my partner is this or that, or the way that I respond to these thoughts may be, but it feels necessary. I'm standing up for who I am. Now, I'm oversimplifying a bit here, but that is a key difference. OCPD is also more pervasive than OCD. It's not one specific theme or fear. It's a way of moving through the world. It can show up at work, with friends, or how someone loads the dishwasher. And of course, it shows up in intimate relationships. It's estimated that OCPD affects somewhere between 2 and 8% of the general population. And that's more commonly diagnosed in men, and yet hardly anyone's talking about it, compared to OCD anyway. The 4 core traits of OCPD are perfectionism, perception, productivity, and projection. And credit goes to therapist and OCPD specialist Brittni Capps for coming up with these 4 Ps. And I'll link to her work in the description because it really is worth exploring if this resonates with you. P number 1, perfectionism. With OCPD, perfectionism isn't just doing things well. It's about there being one right way, and the discomfort, the distress, the infuriation of watching someone else do it differently. Kelvin had strong views about how things should be done, professionally and domestically. And it wasn't arrogance exactly, because it came from an internal standard that he held himself to as well. He worked hard, he did things properly, he was meticulous, and he found it difficult, really difficult, when his wife didn't share that approach. It might be something as mundane as stacking the dishwasher, which sounds trivial until you're the partner who can't put a thing in it without getting corrected. But perfectionism in OCPD isn't just procedural, it extends to the moral too. And this is where retroactive jealousy comes in. Kelvin's wife had a sexual past. She'd had casual experiences in her 20s, and she didn't regret them. And this was, for Kelvin, a massive problem. Not just because of the experiences themselves, but because she couldn't or wouldn't see them the way he did, as wrong. And that's something that needed acknowledging, addressing, setting right. Kelvin wasn't jealous, it was about a standard he held that his wife had failed to meet before she even knew him. and that she now refused to accept. From the OCPD perspective, how do you move on from that? How do you accept a piece of work that was done badly and just leave it? You don't. You keep going back to it because the standard demands it. P number 2, perception. The second P is about how someone with OCPD tends to see themselves, and then by extension, how they see everyone around them. There's a strong sense of identity here. The conscientiousness, the doing things properly, these aren't just habits, they're who I am. It's my responsibility to stay on top of things. You can probably already see how this plays out in relationships. The OCPD partner has a quiet or not so quiet contempt for what they perceive as their partner's carelessness. It might be angry contempt or a tired, I suppose I'll just have to deal with this too. A sense of being the responsible one, surrounded by people who don't get it. And when it comes to a partner's past, things can get pretty angry. Casual sex, reckless, dodgy decisions, that's intolerable to me. Through this lens, my partner is the opposite of what I value in myself. Irresponsible and worse. This comes out in direct accusations or a low-level dissatisfaction. A withdrawal of full respect, a sense that my partner is someone I'm having to overlook something significant about, and that breaks down intimacy either way. Productivity, the third P. Here's the one that surprises people. OCPD often means a deep discomfort with rest, leisure, anything that feels unproductive. Work is where the OCPD person feels most at home. Focused, purposeful, in control. They might be highly successful professionally, really well regarded in their field, regarded, respected, rewarded for being who they are. It's the unstructured time that causes problems. Kelvin mentioned, as an aside really, that he spent a lot of time in his home office, working, or at least in the controlled space of working. And when he was deep in a project, the relationship pressure actually lifted. He had something to get his OCPD teeth into. But weekends, bank holidays, leisure time with his wife felt to Kelvin like unstructured exposure. With no project to focus on, his mind turned to other unresolved things. The big one being his wife's past. You might notice something else with OCPD and productivity, all the researching. When something feels unresolved in the relationship, the OCPD person will throw themselves into understanding it. Books, articles, psychology, Reddit, YouTube, all in the service of getting on top of the problem. And up to a point, that's positive. Some YouTube videos are awesome, and it's a willingness to engage with a problem. But it can be compulsive. Hours spent understanding attachment styles or reading threads from people who validate their perspective. And somewhere underneath, here I am doing all the work to resolve what someone else did, which reinforces the perception problem. I'm the responsible one while you just carry on as if it doesn't matter. Sometimes the productivity of OCPD is described as getting bogged down in the detail and defeating the purpose of the activity, like spending so much time trying to find that perfect restaurant to the point that it becomes tedious and we run out of time and we end up not going out for dinner. It has to be right by my standards kind of thing. But a lot of people with retroactive jealousy say, no, I don't relate to that. I go to restaurants, I get things done, I do really well actually, and I get it. But sometimes this trait of getting bogged down manifests in the relationship itself. Getting so bogged down in it being right, our partner being right for us, things done properly, past and present, it defeats the object of being in a relationship, of having empathy and sharing your world with another person and all the hopes and dreams that come with that. OCPD just has all of that intense gridlock, or it has us out of the relationship sooner or later. And finally, projection. The fourth P is where things can get quite difficult to hear. But in a nutshell, the discomfort that belongs to me gets placed outside onto you. You're the one with the problem. You're the one who doesn't care, doesn't try, has done it wrong, has poor values. And again, this can be on a day-to-day domestic level, a sense that a partner is sloppy or doesn't really try, and it can be a state of constant irritation and nitpicking. But when it comes to a partner's past and their past choices, it's actually harsher than that. The casual sex, the things they did that I wouldn't have done, these get projected onto the partner as character failings and certain labels that I've been advised not to actually say because of the algorithm, but we know what these labels are. Words that come from a place of projected moral judgment, rather than genuine assessment of the person in front of them. And sometimes the manosphere has a lot to answer for here. What also makes this painful is that most OCPD people, including Kelvin, they're aware that this isn't on. They see the harm that their projections do. But what's the alternative? Stop doing what I do? Let it go? That's difficult, isn't it? So it comes back to me. When OCPD goes quiet, something that gets missed in discussions of OCPD, because the stereotype is the controlling, irritable, demanding partner. But there's another version. When the strategies stop working, when the research doesn't resolve anything, and the conversations go nowhere, and the relationship just keeps failing to reach the standard, the OCPD person goes flat. Not explosive, just deflated, going through the motions. It can look like depression, and it shares some features with it, but it's the exhaustion of a person who's been working too hard on something that can't be completed, who's tried to get everything in order and found that some things, a partner's past, another person's values, the irreversibility of time, it cannot be put in order, no matter how much we try. And that's when people end up in therapy, not in a blaze of anger, but in a quiet, depleted kind of, I just don't know what to do. If you recognize some of this in yourself, perhaps, a couple of things to consider. The traits that cause problems in relationships are often the same traits that work really well for you in other places. Conscientiousness, high standards. These aren't flaws. They're part of who you are. And it's how you achieve things. It's not about trying to ditch these parts of yourself. You can't anyway. The therapy that actually helps here isn't the kind that tries to reason you into a different position. The question is more, how did this particular way of thinking develop? What's driving it in this situation? And could there be some flexibility here without losing what's genuinely good about you? And that's slow work sometimes. It's small steps. Sometimes it starts with the dishwasher. And one more thing. If your partner has OCPD tendencies, the same applies to you. This isn't about winning the argument or getting them to see your way. It's understanding what's underneath it. That's a better place to start. And if you found this useful, I've got a previous video specifically on OCPD and retroactive jealousy, which I'll link to and in the description. And I'll have more to come on this topic because I think it deserves a bit more attention. I hope this is helpful. Thank you for watching.